Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's great to have you all with us tonight. Well, it's a thought on the mind of many young adult voters, the need to have their own home, or at least comfortable housing. Some believe we are at a crisis point in housing. Qualifying for a mortgage seems impossible with local banks, and finding property or housing seems even more impossible. Now, for those who rent, that too is a crisis. Rent these days seems to be more like mortgage payments, yet the space is pretty basic. Small and overpriced, to say the least. Landlords want to make a profit, and with property taxes and fees hanging right over them, they're forced to go up on the rent. Now, what's making this decision easy is a thirsty market that's out there needing to rent. If you question the high payment, someone else will snatch the rental property right from you. So how do we fix this issue? How do we deal with this crisis? Tonight, our political roundtable deals with this issue with a popular real estate agent who has been in the market for years now and will, of course, give us some information and dialogue on this matter. Let's meet Daren Seymour, of course. Daren Seymour has been in this market for some time now. He understands what the market trends are. He understands what exactly people are searching for. First of all, Daren, I think it's safe to say there is an appetite for housing in this country today, correct?
Definitely a high demand and in some cases low supply. And so we need to improve our system, Clint, all around. We're grateful for, at HC Christie we talk about luxury. Luxury is a system.
Yeah.
It's our banking system, it's our legal system, it's our regulatory system. It all works together to make it work. And what we need to do is give Bahamians access to capital. If you don't have access to capital, you can't have generational wealth. So that's what we're talking about, building a future for Bahamians and for generations to come.
Is that the biggest problem you have when people are in the market shopping for some place to live, to rent, or to buy, or to build? Is their biggest issue, how do I get financing?
That's a major problem. But beyond that, we encourage people to be pre-qualified. But the problem is, what about the person who comes and they're pre-qualified and they go to the banks and the banks still tell them no? It's like you're putting hurdles in the way of Bahamians. It's like, you know, they meet the requirement and then you lift the bar.
So if people are pre-qualifying based on what you as a real estate company believe should qualify people to have their own home or their own property, but yet they go to the bank and they're not able to get the finance.
And they're not approved. Pre-qualification doesn't mean pre-approval. So you have people walking around with a nice pre-qualification letter, but at the end of the day, when they get to the finish line, they are disappointed. And so people are frustrated. You can imagine paying for valuations and all these things, going through the process, then at the end of the day, they tell you it's not possible. I'm talking about a real situation. I'm talking about Mr. Smeeting, who I just gave the keys to yesterday. One bank, which was set up by the law to help Bahamians with places to go, refused them. But we found a way around the system. But what about the persons who don't meet a real estate agent like Daren?
Correct.
They fall through the system, and many people are disenfranchised and blocked out. And you rob them of their Bahamian birthright because they're refused. The system needs to be fixed. The system, the regulatory system, the banking system, all that needs to be fixed. But there is hope. There is hope.
I want to find that out, because you said you were able to give somebody their keys who couldn't get it through the bank.
Yes.
How were you able to do that?
They were told no. Well, you can have a policy. The banks have different policies. And so if one bank's policy is this, do you believe in this country they are telling people that, oh, you can't live in this particular area because the bank does not, the bank deems that property, that area too risky? Python Road?
Really?
Where's your vision? Are you telling me that because Python Road is what it is, you don't believe in gentrification?
So banks are telling people it's too risky?
Yes. They don't want to. You're too close to Camp Road. Come on, let's get down home now. So what you're doing is you're basically hindering the future of this country because you're preventing them, Camp Road, from being. You could transform Camp Road, but why are we not having transformation? Why don't you have give them a platform to say, okay, what do we need to do now to improve the system to make Python Road what we want it to be? Why don't we have a conversation with the political leaders and say, okay, well, perhaps we need a park to make it more feasible.
Right.
We need to have these conversations. But I must commend one bank. I don't want to be biased, but on more than one occasion, Scotiabank came through for that client. And so he's a homeowner now. Of course, he engaged his agent, Sarah Appleton at H.E. Christie. I was the listing agent, and we were able to work miracles. It is a miracle. But why do I have to struggle like this? And what about those who are falling through the cracks? That's
yes.
the problem. That's the challenge.
Yes.
Okay. And this is the cry of behemoths who are qualified, but you are choking them by your system. And so we need to improve service. We need to improve the systems, the policies, and we need consistency. It shows that you're inconsistent, because if one bank is saying this and the other bank is saying that. Now, of course, we know the government don't really control the bank's policies, but my God.
But they can.
If you have a
They say they
Bahamian
don't,
bank,
but they can.
if you call yourself Bahamian
If
bank,
you have a bank in your country, you have the ability through your legislative ability and also the central bank who monitor these banks to make sure policies. I want to bring the roundtable in here, because to me this is ridiculous in 21st century, because that should be the basic requirement to make sure housing. I mean, if we have Bahamians that cannot get homes, it's further compounding an already burdensome housing crisis. I'm going to stop with you, Doc. I always stop with you, Doc. We're hearing now these issues with commercial banks. And of course, commercial banks, they're in the business, let's be honest, their main priority is to make money. They got to make a profit. Right. So while a lot of these commercial banks can say, we care about you, do they really? They are there to really make the profit. And too many Bahamians are falling through the cracks because they're not meeting these burdensome requirements right. for home ownership. And that's why so many Bahamians don't have their own homes.
Well, let's start out. He made some very good points about housing, the housing crisis, rental crisis. A lot of people are transferring their homes into Airbnb, so that's causing a dwindle on it. Mm-hmm. So I would say I think the price of real estate went up 14% over the from 2010 to 2022, if I remember. The price of properties went up 14%, whereas the wages only went up 2%. So there's a big disparity, and that's why a lot of people were not able to build their homes between 2010 to 2022. You understand? And of course, you know, there's a big difference in supply and demand. Economics 101 teaches us that. With the immigration, a number of people came into the country, and of course you have the shanty towns that were, some of them were broken down, not all of them, and so these people were looking for housing. And that also created a housing crisis in the Bahamas.
There's more people now in the market.
More people in the market, and so the price of rent went up, and so a lot of people cannot afford it. Now I can tell you what COI plan to do. COI plan to, first of all, we want to subsidize mortgages and make it more accessible to Bahamian people.
How? How are you going to subsidize?
The rate. The rate, we have to put the rate down. And we have to do banking reform. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes these banks get away with too much. Mm-hmm. And I think there's no oversight in some of the banking laws. So we would like to do that. Another thing, he mentioned Kemp Road. We're going to have a ministry, COI will have a ministry of urban development. I don't think the Bahamas has ever had a special ministry just for that, where we want to, no, seriously, a special urban development where we could build rental units mm-hmm. in certain areas of Nassau. Another area that we can help with housing would be, you could actually, I wrote something down here. Oh, right, relaxed zoning. Mm. Because right now, Nassau have a lot of areas where you can only have single family dwelling. What if we change that to multi-family dwellings, change the zoning, so that then you'll have more people, like more rental units, more townhouses in those areas. So we're suggesting that. And then another thing for housing crisis, I was online the other day and I was looking at some of these modular units that they're building in China. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was prefab modular constructed units. And they were bringing them in, and you could build your house in 3 weeks. And they said it was sustainable to
even in hurricane zone.
Right. They said they were up to 150 miles an hour, these structures. And I thought that would revolutionize the market. So that would be something that I personally would want to look into for the housing market. That would revolutionize it.
Let me ask you, Daren, what are people looking for when they come into the real estate companies? What are they looking for?
Bahamians are not looking for handouts, you know. For the most part of it. You have there are Bahamians who want you to just fix the system. You've been preaching from way back, from the first prime minister's time. You know, I'm not trying to be political, to save. So Bahamians are saving. They want you to...
They are saving.
Yes, they are saving. And there are Bahamians who are qualified. What hurts me is when you have qualified Bahamians and you're frustrating them with your system. Now, that's the banking system. Bahamians just want the system to be efficient. Come on, just give me a fair chance, okay? We have the foreigners and we encourage foreign direct investment. We love them. But what do you say when they come here with their
finance? Let me ask you, Daren, are they taking advantage of the market?
Who, Bahamians?
Foreigners.
Listen, if you have a condo in New York for $250,000 and I could afford it, why not? The world is a global village. We don't want to be like some countries now that are being prejudiced, you know. And so we encourage that in the Bahamas. And of course,
and they're taking advantage of it. They have the capital.
People all around the world take advantage of opportunities any way you see it. And Bahamians too are taking advantage. You know, they are Bahamian cash buyers. What I'm saying is for the average Bahamians who do not have access to capital and who are working hard and doing what the thing. There are some Bahamians who are leaving this country. I just talked to my client, leaving this country, going to places where they can have further benefits. We're talking about housing today, but some leave because of health reasons, or they get their children education free. But it's all connected. So we're talking about a whole system. We're talking about luxury, a whole system. And what I'm saying is that, okay, if you have a client coming here with cash for 10 days, and you have a Bahamian who may be qualified, but it's going to take, the system takes them 6 months to qualify. Who do you think is going to get that property? Wow. If you're selling your property and you could get it done in 10 days, you're going to give it to the person who could come in 10 days. So you see the unfairness. So what you need to do is close the gap. With the person who's coming with the cash, assure the seller that this person, in fact, some sellers want to sell to the Bahamian, but they're frustrated because every time they're working with a bank, it takes forever. So that means that the system is broken and we need to fix the system.
Agreed. I'm going to get Colin there.
Yeah, so the housing, this is a crisis, to say the least. I believe one of the things that we should adopt as a country is to stop selling land to foreigners. Real estate agents, because they, you know, they're looking to make their commission and they can get it faster if they have a cash save with a foreigner. You know, they'll be inclined to sell it more to foreigners. I believe that as a country, we need to bring some regulation on how much of our property we give away to foreigners. Furthermore, I was trying to look for the central bank report that was done over 10 years ago that talked about a housing crisis, and that the Bahamas was short some 30,000 housing units.
That's a lot.
And that was more than 10 years ago. And so you can imagine what that number is today. I believe that, you know, banks have to be much more regulated than they are now. Dr. McGyver talked about urban development. I just want to make a correction there. There is an urban renewal authority.
That's different. That's different from urban development.
But there's a ministry. It's called Ministry of Housing and Urban Development.
Right. No, urban renewal.
No, it's called urban. It's called urban development.
Two different things.
So that's a just bring a correction. There is an authority responsible for the revitalization of urban centers. The government has the Clear Hole and Build initiative. And what has been happening in the Ministry of Housing is derelict properties in the inner city. He talks about the banks not wanting to give mortgages in certain areas. So the government has taken an approach where they have compulsory acquire derelict properties in the inner city community, revitalizing them or building small affordable housing on them and giving them to Bahamians. So we talk about transforming communities. And so this would allow for a total community transformation. So you would take these derelict properties, you would build small homes on it, or affordable homes, not small homes, affordable home, you revitalize the area. And that is a help to the housing crisis. And the reality is the government has several subdivisions going up in Nassau, Abaco, Grand Bahama, San Salvador, Eleuthera. So subdivisions are building all over the country for affordable housing, and then government also have adopted the condo or townhouse style structure so it can be able to house more families. But the reality is, it cannot be on the government alone to solve the housing crisis. I believe that the banks...
It has to be an effort by the commercial banks. They got to say, okay, for the next year, we're going into amnesty period in banks, and we're going to relax a lot of these requirements, and let's get people in houses.
But you know what is so amazing?
Why is that so difficult to do?
The bank will give you a $50,000 loan with no collateral involved.
For
car, consumer loan. But the bank will not give you a $50,000 loan to buy a piece of property.
No.
They make it extremely difficult to get a piece of property, which is collateral. But they'll give you a $50,000 loan, burning you down with these consumer loans. And then when it's time for you to get later on in life, say, you know what, let me get a house. You're so solid with these consumer loans, your debt, the service ratio is so high that you cannot afford a house. So the banks needs to be checked by the central bank for these predatory lendings that they are doing to Bahamians.
Exactly.
The banks are the biggest reason why Bahamians are financially suffering in this country.
On the other hand, I do commend the central bank. This year, I think it's this year or earlier last year, they introduced a policy basically relaxing controls in terms of deposits. So First Caribbean used to do it, and also Bank of the Bahamas, because they have something called indemnity insurance. But the central bank has improved, relaxed controls all across the board. So you'll see, for example, Scotiabank now, who used to be known for higher down payments, allowing 5% once you qualify. So that's a good
They've
system.
done their part.
That's an example of improving the system to help Bahamians. We're not saying to be irresponsible. We don't want Bahamians to be irresponsible and just go take advantage of that, and then when you give them a loan, the cost rating in the world to come down. I'm talking about helping Bahamians. What I'm talking about is creating incentives for developers, creating incentives for business owners who are the heartbeat of this country, creating opportunities for them and giving them capital in order for them to now create even more opportunities. For example, you have developments, Bahamians who are involved in development, encouraging that kind of thing so that persons on the lower level, encourage the business people. They're employing the staff. What are you doing to help capital?
What incentives you're doing?
Now, everybody knows that the banks don't like to, generally don't like to give for commercial. But that's where the policy
and again,
come.
If they don't like give for commercial, then who's going to lend it? Who's going to lend it?
So let me
how are you going to spot in your business if the bank won't take a risk with you?
Right. Let me jump in right there, Clinton. Brother Seymour, it's a pleasure to have you on the show this evening. One of the things you touched on just now, and I feel your passion. I really feel it, and obviously it's something that you love to do in regards to the Bahamian people and their suffering in regards to getting crisis. But what's so funny is the fact that when the leader of the opposition, Michael Pinto, said we're going to explode in terms of the housing revolution and build thousands of homes within a year, Carl, one of my good friends, he found it to be actually funny. It was actually a joke to him, right? But one of the things you mentioned is that we have to be innovative and we have to be creative in terms of how do we tap into the market. One of the things the AFLM is going to do, and you just made the good point, that's why I said let me jump in right there, is we have to empower Bahamians who are actually in the industry, construction, engineers, innovatives, find ways to give them grants, find ways to give capital to them. Look at policies. I disagree with us having to stop selling foreigners our land per se, but what I would agree is that if a foreigner has a 2% mortgage where they live, and they could get the same rate here, why can't Bahamians benefit from these same type of tax incentives and breaks? So if they could get a lower mortgage rate, automatically for Bahamians it should be the same thing. They should be able, even with Bahamians in terms of concessionary, in terms of building supplies and that sorts of stuff, we could look at ways, like you say, as legislators or as leaders, to find ways to get creative, to make the market a little more affordable and a little easy for the Bahamian people. And one of the things we're trying to do as the FNM is, even with the down payment, look at ways that we could avoid Bahamians with having to come down with the initial down payment, talk to the banks to tell them, pause the down payment. Let's see whatever they qualify for. Let's see if we can get them, work around to get them the cash and then come back on the backside and say, we close off the payment. And so I think it's literally serious. We have to get innovative. And I think, like you say, it's cross-sectorial. We have to sit down, talk to the relevant stakeholders, but definitely we got to be serious with these banks. And I have the view that whoever's sitting down to the table, this is our land. This is our country. I feel like if you don't want to be in line with what it is that we want them for our people as legislators, then we got to move you to the side, because there are many other people who are looking to set up business opportunities and set up banks right here in our country. And so I think we just need to be a little more forceful with these banks and ensuring that, hey man, you're killing our people and we need to make do with this.
Should our people not be renting to own?
Let me share.
If you look at the amount of rent a single mother will pay in, let's say, a 10, 15-year period, couldn't that have been a good injection into a home for her?
Let me say this. Let me say this, Brother Clint. When I just need some clarity. You said foreigners pay a different mortgage rate than Bahamians?
Yes, in certain. So if there's a second homeowner, right now they get the interest rate of where they live. Okay. They could apply their same interest rate here in our country. So the regular rate wouldn't apply to them.
So let me just say this. I wholeheartedly agree with the rent to own. I believe that, oh boy, that in itself should be explored. One of the things that I want to commend the government on is actually not just talking about rent to own, but initiating it, starting it, and having Bahamians benefit. And the government's rent to own program is much more feasible and affordable than you would pay outside of there. I know of cases where single mother family with 4 kids, 1 handicap, $800 a month on a rent-to-own bill. So she's in a house, she's paying $800 a month, and it is reduced because she rented an apartment in Pinewood paying $2,000 a month.
How are people paying $2,000 a month for an apartment?
Clint,
that's more than a mortgage payment.
Because of the government's rent-to-own program, you now save that family $1,200 a month. And the rent-to-own, let me say this, the government's rent-to-own is very much flexible. If you have consumer debt, right, you could come to the government and say, hey, this is my pay stub, I'm burdened down with debt. So the government could take a position where they say, okay, you don't have to have a down payment to come in. If you qualify for a mortgage, right, but you don't have the down payment, the government could say, okay, pay $800 a month for 2 years, and we'll take that, give it to the bank as your down payment, so you will have a sizable amount of money to put on the principal of your mortgage. And so I believe that the system or the idea of the rent-to-own that the Davis administration has already implemented should be adopted straight across the board. I think banks should look at it. Banks have these massive amount of repossessed homes. Why you can't rent-to-own those homes?
Good point.
Allow me. Good evening, everyone. You know, I want to go back to one of the first things that Mr. Seymour brought to our attention. And I am almost disheartened to understand that a person seeking a home near Kemp Road is told, no, it's too risky. So if he is told because he is near, we're not going to invest in you, what are they telling Kemp Road? That means they're out of the race. And I take it personal because I'm on the ground, not because of politics. When I'm not at this table, there's another table I'm at that's in the trenches. It's in Kemp Road. For example, Dr. Sandra McDonald could use some help. She's their monthly feeding, clothing persons, along with the Grace Center team. So I just want to pay my respects to Pastor Glenn Roll, who, you know, you're on the ground. So while there are persons profiting from the top end, Clint, what I'm saying is there are those of us who are on the other end trying to keep persons from the brink of giving up, or from hopelessness, or from turning to the wrong type of lifestyle. So I just want to make sure we understand. This is influencing crime also.
Yes.
When persons feel alienated or that they are not a stakeholder in the community. That's on the one side. And I just want to close this portion by saying that in terms of the housing, this government knew the housing challenges, yet they demolished, both administrations carried out demolishing exercises in terms of shanty towns with no plans of where these persons would go. So they now created, they exacerbated the situation by needing a massive demand for homes instantly. And this is what we've been saying over the last few years.
I want to say something. There are 2 other incentives that I can think of to spur, you know, housing, to mitigate the housing crisis, and that is COI wants to give 1 acre of crown land on the family islands. That will incentivize people to move to the family islands because we have to depopulate Nassau at some point. And that will spur activity on the family islands because we want to get into what we call island states. That will work perfectly into it. People will now have something that they own. And it'll be easier to get a mortgage if you already own the property.
The land is cheaper, definitely.
Right. And another incentive would be, since a lot of people are taking their homes into Airbnb, maybe what we could do is incentivize people to do long-term rentals and move away from the Airbnb. And so that is another way to have more rental units in Nassau.
Daren will give you the final word in this segment, and that is, of course, there is hope for those who've been told no. What do you want to say to them?
I want to say that the banks are not our enemies. We need to work together. Like I've demonstrated with the scenario I gave, banks are trying to help. And also, at the end of the day, we have to look at this from a macro point of view, how our country, I'm not one to encourage handouts. I came from a single family home. My mother never taught us to beg. She owned not just one, 2 houses, but the sweat of her own hand. She didn't have to sell herself. So this is very personal to me. Bahamians can have an opportunity to succeed. All we need is access. You give us access, we will take it and run with it. We need the system to work together. We need regulatory system to work with the banking system, to work with the legal system. That's a whole thing we didn't even touch.
Because I tell you, with them lawyers, I can tell you going tripping in a house.
Yeah, it's a whole system. And Bahamians don't just want to look at luxury. We want to access luxury.
There you go.
Okay, and so we have to open the door for Bahamians by just give them a chance, you know. And Bahamians are qualified. You Bahamians are qualified, but just need the system to work. Bahamians too. We need to stop being so negative, have a positive attitude, even with our own. Change our attitude, change our mentality. Stop looking to the government for handout, because they ain't gonna give you no handout. And if you hear it's a handout, that's not realistic. Okay? The government is here to facilitate growth. I'm not sure if I agree with the government even involved in the housing program per se. In terms of, I mean, the government has to look out for the poor and the indigent. That's their responsibility. But I'm talking about they need to create the opportunity for those who are called to do it. That is, the contractors. Create the system. Let them do it.
Right.
And you oversee it. That's less work for you. Okay? We have an Able Contractors Association. Mobilize them, empower them. We have a powerful real estate community. Bahamas Real Estate Association with a team of realtors, licensed realtors, okay? I'm not talking about the people who are just taking the money online. Empower the people, empower the people. You have qualified people,
yes,
white and black.
Yes.
We are not against foreigners. We welcome foreigners. That's how this country was built. And we welcome, but we also give equal opportunity to Bahamians. Why Bahamians sitting outside in all these other places, making them rich, and we here are not giving them the same opportunity? Empower Bahamians, give us all the opportunity. We can create generational wealth. Change the system, change the mindset. You're talking about crime? You're creating the crime because you're stopping Johnny from trying to go down the Pemb Road and changing the atmosphere in there. Who could change Pemb Road better than Johnny?
Exactly.
But you're stopping Johnny from getting the wealth, going his own place. You're limiting him. You're putting him in a chokehold. Say rent all your life. How you expect? What you expect with crime?
Yeah.
Let's give Bahamians the opportunity by creating the right environment and come together, create the best solutions for our country.
Go see Daren Seymour. He'll tell you how to get your house, how to get in it. Thank you, Daren, for joining.